welcome, ladies and gentlemen of Ega's Army of the Night, to the Bloodstained Community Broadcast. My guest tonight is Miketendo. Hi, Mike.
How's it going?
Going great. So, for the audience that doesn't know Miketendo, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm a long-term Castlevania fan. It's my favorite franchise. I do a YouTube channel. It's called youtube.com/Dongled. Easiest way to find it is to look up the show names. I do a couple different shows, but the two main ones are Dude, You Haven't Played This Game. It's a video game review show. It's the best way for me to explain it is it's kind of like Angry Video Game Nerd and Happy Video Game Nerd meets like Pat the NES Punk and Rue from Clan of the Grey Wolf. I guess that's the best way to describe it. It's got skits, and each episode has the theme and everything. And I try to pick I try to pick a good mix of games and professionally review them. I have a journalism degree, and so I use that to my advantage to be able to kind of say, because I've been writing reviews for video games since high school. So ever since then, even when I was a little kid, I wanted to be like an editor at Nintendo Power. That was like my goal, my big dream.
Oh yeah, I love Nintendo Power.
Oh,
I had
yeah.
the pin.
Oh
I had it for so long. They sent out those pins. I still wish I had that.
Yeah, I mean, that was just my kind of dream. So it was always a shame when Nintendo Power closed up because I knew that, well, now I can't do that. But I took my degree and basically used it in a different way, and I kind of took a lot of inspiration from the shows that I mentioned, and I kind of put my own humor and my own twist on the show. So I try to keep all episodes like fresh and funny. Show's come a long way since the first season, so if you start with the first season, just know that it definitely, in my opinion, I look back on that and I'm just like, wow, so much has changed, because the show's just it in my opinion, and many others, all the other fans, it's gotten better, like much better. So I'm a big fan.
I'd agree, but the old episodes are still good. But yeah, there's the production value is definitely ramped up.
Yeah, it's had to. So there's all professional lighting and scripts and all the whole nine yards. So I'm a huge Metroid fan as well. So Metroid, Castlevania, and Mega Man are like my three favorite big time franchises. So, but Castlevania has always been, for the most part, number one, I would say. And so the whole reason why I started the review show is because I watched the Angry Video Game Nerds review on Castlevania 2, and I was like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Castlevania 2 is amazing. And so I started working on a review, and it never saw the light of day originally in the format that it was created in until several years later, and it's actually one of my most popular episodes is the Castlevania 2 one, because I try to look at the game in a different light than most reviewers, and I think a lot of viewers, especially people who are fans of Castlevania 2, appreciated it. So,
yeah, I mean, it was really kind of the blueprint for Ega's work, because it's a non-linear, kind of open world. It's more open world than just an open castle, but it's pretty much the same thing.
Exactly, right. And
multiple endings that it can be different.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah. And the music in that game is just alone worth the game.
Oh, phenomenal. Yeah. So, and then the other show that I do is PixelTunes Radio, which I know Mike's a big fan of. PixelTunes Radio is a video game podcast, and so we talk about video game music and video games, and again, we try to keep it fun and fresh. And we also try to make sure it's educational in the sense that you're learning something from the show. And we have skits in there too, like little commercials and skits. We try to treat it like it's an actual, real, living, breathing radio show. And
yeah, I love the skits in that show. They're great.
So we have, like, especially for Bloodstained fans, Castlevania fans, we have a number of episodes where we feature pretty much all Castlevania tracks. Halloween is like a big thing for us, so we do Castlevania episodes every Halloween, and then we also do a special, it's called Spooky Tunes, or Spooky Tunes Radio.
Spooky.
Yes, so it's a lot of fun, and we try to have a good time with it. So it's me and my buddy Ed who do that, and we have guests on all the time, and we're trying to get composers. And so far, we've been working with a couple, kind of shooting emails back and forth. So Fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah, good luck with that. But yeah, I always say you can judge a podcast by its Halloween episode, and that's a great time for fans of Castlevania to listen to it, because just the episode before that, they can check that out because that's all Castlevania. And then the Spooky Tunes episode 1 is great, and then just all the Halloween episodes after that are good too. So yeah, it's my favorite show, and if it wasn't for your show, this show wouldn't exist, because that's when I really started loving podcasting, was because of your show, and it's still my favorite.
Wow,
so thank you very much for that.
No problem. It's very flattering to hear that, so I definitely appreciate it. I know if Ed was here, he would too, but
right, I know. And we're on that Facebook group. It's the best Facebook group ever, because everybody's so friendly, and we all love video games, and it's just a great Facebook group. So anyways, so tonight we're going to be talking about the Bloodstained demo that came out, obviously, some of the feedback, and just what we like about Bloodstained and Castlevania. Have you played the Bloodstained demo?
Yes, I have. Originally, my computer was not liking it. I had a lot of difficulty running it, and so eventually I just gave up, and I was just going to watch video footage of it. But we're recording PixelTunes Radio's next episode tomorrow, and so I was over at Ed's house. We were just playing through some of the games that we're going to be talking about, and I casually mentioned, hey, I have the Bloodstained demo, because I was a backer, and he was like, dude, let's put it on, let's play it. So I signed into Steam, and we downloaded it and started playing it, and I played through the whole thing, and it was pretty cool.
What did Ed think of it?
Ed, Ed really likes Castlevania. I don't know if he's... I don't think he's as big of a fan as I am, but I think he enjoyed it. I think he was more, skeptical about it, and was more like, all right, well, this is a good start. And I agree that it's a good start, but at the same time, I was smiling ear to ear playing through it, but just because I missed Castlevania so much, true, real Castlevania. So it was a real breath of fresh air to see this.
Yeah. Well, you're a backer. Ed's not a backer. But yes. I think Ed'll probably get it once it comes out.
Yeah, he's kind of on the fence with Kickstarters, just because, he's seen the bad side and the good side. And I think with... he has, kids and a wife and everything. And, I'm just getting married, next month, actually. So...
congratulations.
Thank you. It's one of those things where I kind of have more money to spend, believe it or not. So, because I don't have a family. So I'm kind of like, well, I'm gonna back this. It's one of those things where if I can get something like this, I don't foresee myself being able to get this ever without backing it, putting money down, and showing the fan base that I want to be a part of that too. And it wasn't even a question of a doubt. At the time I didn't have a PS4, I just had the Wii U, so I was kind of skeptical because I was waiting, and they finally announced the Wii U version, and then I ended up getting a PS4 anyways. But yeah. I still backed for the physical version of the Wii U. So
right. Well, you're a big collector. You have a huge Castlevania collection, not let alone a huge retro gaming collection. So yeah, I was surprised that you actually played the demo, because I know that you're not into a lot of PC gaming as compared to all of the great stuff that you've got physically.
Yeah. I had to. It was one of those things where I've backed other games before, and they've sent demos the closest I ever came to playing a demo was the Shantae demo for Shantae Half Genie Hero, which I'm super excited about as well. And so they sent me the code for it, and I was like, I should probably download this, and I never did. But as soon as they released the Bloodstained demo, I was like, I can't. I have to try this. So, Castlevania just has a very special place, especially fall time. It's weird. It's as soon as I start smelling that fall, autumn crisp air.
Yeah, that crisp air. Exactly.
I need to play Castlevania all the time. So October for me, late September, all through October, early November is just Castlevania month for me.
Yeah. So you got Morte's shard in the demo, right?
Morte doesn't have a shard.
All right. So let's see. We can go over some feedback. In the update, there's a link to the forums, and everybody's encouraged to kind of give their feedback. And there's a ton of great feedback, overwhelmingly positive feedback about the game. And I won't go over that because we all know the strengths. I'm talking more about like maybe what people are suggesting and kind of comparing what's popular opinion to what's not popular opinion, just so people can see that they're taking the feedback, and if they're going to do anything with it like they have been doing in the past, we can kind of track that. So the first thing is the boss. A lot of people thought that the boss and the game as a whole was too easy, and a lot of people thought that it was also too colorful, but a good amount of people also liked the color, so that one was kind of hard. What did you think about the difficulty and the color of the boss?
I mean, so I'm basing it based on the fact that this is most likely an introduction stage. So if this is the beginning of the game and this is the intro stage, I thought the difficulty was okay. I will say that I didn't have any problems beating any part of the demo. Like, I went through it, it was really simple. I do agree that it was maybe a bit too easy. Not necessarily the boss, but the rest of the levels, like the enemies, so to speak. So I thought that the enemies were a bit too easy overall, but particularly the boss, the patterns were pretty easy. And I don't know, maybe it just... To me, Bloodstained is like an unofficial continuation of Order of Ecclesia. It feels very Order of Ecclesia-ish, at least in terms of the art style and the story, the characters, and everything. So, Order of Ecclesia was brutal. I mean, I had so much difficulty with that game, but to be honest, it's my favorite of the handheld, like, Igavanias. So
yeah,
I thought it was fantastic. Like, it also kind of brought back a real, like, Castlevania 2 vibe for Simon's Quest, and so I'm kind of expecting Bloodstained to continue that feeling. At least I'm hoping so. So as far as
because it had like the village that you'd save the villagers and stuff.
Yeah,
and I would suspect that Bloodstained is going to do something similar to that. I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, but for this intro level, this is a good introduction to the game and to the characters and, you know, the play styles and how to play and everything. So I didn't really fault it for being too easy necessarily. Now, if this was in the middle of the game, absolutely it'd be too easy. But as far as the colors go, I thought the boss was maybe a little too colorful, maybe like darken it up a bit. But I didn't personally look at the boss and be like, oh, that's too bright. Like, I didn't think it was like obnoxiously colorful. I just was looking at it like, okay, you know, this is a boss. I mean, the big thing with the visuals, which I saw a lot of people on the forum kind of talking about, was the ginormous breasts.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like it. Before I started playing the demo, I was talking to Ed about it, and I was like, yeah, you know, a lot of people were talking about, you know, the boobs on the female villain towards the, you know, the end of the demo. And so I was like, I don't know, see what the big deal is. And then I got to it and was like, okay, yeah, those are pretty silly. I mean, it wasn't necessarily that I was like offended, because I don't care about that kind of thing. But I was definitely kind of like, oh, wow, those are boobs. Like, there's no... Some people on the forum I saw were saying, like, oh, those aren't boobs. And I'm like, yeah, those are boobs,
yeah,
dude.
They're not sacks full of water.
Right.
That's where she stores her water.
Yep.
Well, we say she, but if you look up the demons of the Gautier, what Iga's basing most of his monsters off of are these Solomon's Lesser Key demons.
Oh.
And that one... Vipar is actually referred to as a male the whole time.
Huh.
And it specifically calls it a male, but it says that it has the appearance of a mermaid. And they probably would have said merman if merman was a word that was used back in the past, but it really wasn't. So there's a little bit of conflict there, and some people think it's male, which I just chalk it up as it's Japan.
Right.
Iga's going to do what Iga's going to do. So.
And Iga said that, too. Like, he specifically came out and said, hey, like, this game's gonna be made for a Japanese audience with a Japanese mindset, and I'm fine with that. Like, I just want the game to be created by the developers for not for a specific like audience. Like, just because a lot of Westerners back the game doesn't mean that the game needs to be built for a Western audience.
Yeah, his quote was, "While it's true that we raised the funds for Bloodstained from overseas sources primarily, I hope people understand that the content is not particularly aimed at foreigners. We are making this game as we, a Japanese, would like to make."
Exactly. And that is the whole reason why I appreciate Castlevania for being what it is. Because Castlevania, which we can get into this a lot more in depth when we start talking more about Castlevania, but I will say that Castlevania started off as a Japanese take or spin-on on the Universal and Hammer horror films regarding like monsters, like all those monsters in the Castlevania universe. So it's like a cheeky kind of B movie, but with that Japanese flavor. And because of that, I think that should continue into Bloodstained. I see no reason for that to stop, and I think that they're doing a great job with it so far.
Yeah. I'm just kind of tired of hearing about boobs and Bloodstained.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I don't want them there. I'm just
sure.
saying that it's such a focus of conversation that I'm kind of tired of that.
I think just because it is a Western audience, and maybe people who are jumping on as backers, maybe they do have that mindset where they want everything to be very unsexualized. And I never looked at any of this stuff as overtly, obnoxiously sexual. Like, there were certain...
Yeah, it's not like she's meant to be attractive. That's not a sexualization. It's a gender thing. I mean...
Right, exactly.
It's not wearing a shirt. It's not wearing a bra. It looks like it's a pregnant monster. It's got a big distended belly.
Right.
It spits out these monsters, and then, it's got these engorged breasts. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
I didn't... But yeah, she flails them around like, like, hey, look at these. But
right.
I don't think it's like... I don't know. It is what it is.
It's not like Senran Kagura where, they're being overtly cheeky with the humor and with the focus on breasts. It's basically, hey, this is a game, this is an action game, there are female characters in it, females have breasts, that's the end
and
of
males in this case,
yeah,
it's a male.
Exactly, right. So,
well, it's a tentacle monster, so it could have went worse.
Yeah, that's very true, especially if they're keeping it with a Japanese mindset, but we won't go there.
To make it a little bit more difficult, people were suggesting that her attacks maybe are harder to dodge and do more damage, and maybe see some variation in attacks, add a couple of more attacks.
I just felt like there was too much time between attacks, maybe. Like, I felt like I always had an opening to attack for the most part, and it was essentially like, I would get attacked, and she would like shoot those things out at you, and you saw, like, right away, you could pretty much very easily dodge them. But what I thought would be a lot better is if she sent more, like, little minions out to attack you while she's shooting at you. Because then, at that point, you have to focus on two different things. You have to focus on what's in front of you down on the floor, and then also what's in the air. So it's making your eyes bounce back and forth, up and down, and I think that'd be a lot better.
I saw someone else make that suggestion, and someone else was opposed to it because they don't like having additional monsters in a Castlevania-type boss fight. Mm-hmm. Can you recall any other previous boss fights that were like that?
Well, I mean, there were, like, for example, Medusa is a perfect example in Super Castlevania 4, because when you're fighting Medusa, she's throwing the snakes at you overhead, but she's also shooting the stone beam at you to, like, make you turn into stone. Mm-hmm. So there's this constant array of enemies coming at you, but it's easy enough to attack, but at the same time, like, it's very easy to dodge. I felt like when you're first initially playing it, it's a bigger challenge. So maybe something more like that, just amped up on the difficulty a little bit. But it's definitely been done in the other games before, where you have
yeah,
to
even
do
in the
that.
first one, the Frankenstein and the Flea Man.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was one of the hardest freaking boss fights I've ever fought.
Yep, exactly. Or even like the Grim Reaper, like Death.
The Scythes, if you count those as enemies.
I mean, those are pretty much like little tiny small enemies coming at you, so you got to kind of dodge those while you're trying to attack him. So I think there's always been that focus.
Partway through the level, her stomach busts through the ship and spits out 3 monsters at you. And then when you're actually fighting the boss fight, it opens its mouth and it spits out like water blasts at you. Mm-hmm. And the way that they're arced and stuff, you might wonder, did the designers consider doing just that? Because those attacks right there looks like they would be perfect for spawning in enemies that way.
Yeah.
But this is an E3 demo. People are lining up to play it, and they're waiting, and then they want to get through it and say that they did it. So, when you're looking at this demo, you have to think that it was built just for E3. It even says that it's the E3 version,
right?
And of course they'll give that to the backers too. But I think the priority was to gear this to lines and lines of people at a convention like that,
right? Yeah,
and
I think that I think to be honest with you, I didn't even expect anything to come out. So the fact that any demo came out, I figured that we wouldn't see anything downloadable until at least like October, November, around that Castlevania time of year, where they would be like, "Hey, it's Castlevania time. Here's a here's a Bloodstained demo." So I'm really grateful that we get to see it so early in development, and I can only imagine what it's going to look like in October.
Yeah, somebody made a comment that the water blast visuals needed some work, but I don't know. I didn't see anybody else make that but that one person.
Visually, I would say that I thought that there were a lot of things that needed work, in the sense that they didn't match up with the main visuals. Like I felt like the core visuals of the overall experience were really strong, but the enemies and their attacks specifically kind of looked at times out of place. Some didn't, but some did. Specifically, the things that look like oh man, they're these enemies in Faxanadu. They look like mushroom heads on like a giant mushroom that's moving, basically with teeth. And
so the tentacle, the white tentacle guys, they're called Sema.
Yeah. Those, they definitely kind of looked out of place to me, and I felt like they didn't belong there. Like they were too bright. They were too. They just didn't fit with the rest of the enemies that you saw throughout the rest of the game. Like the knights were really cool. Those knights with the headless knights or whatever. They were really cool.
Dullahammers were they were really cool. They were like a giant urchin with eyes on their chest, and they'd fling around their head-like weapon. Yeah, that was neat. But I liked the Sema. I thought that they fit in really well. I loved how they crawl up on the ship and jump in, and how they bust through the ship and like get spit into there. Mm-hmm. The interaction with the background, I just loved it. When it would break things and it would make like a beam fall down that you could run on.
Yep.
And then when you're running on it, it's got these ropes that are holding it up. And if you pass behind them, you feel like there's a lot of layers of depth to the game, but yet it still feels very 2D and plays very 2D.
Oh, very much so. I mean, it's great to see that much detail this early on. The cannon specifically really impressed me. Because I was thinking back to Symphony of the Night with the cannon, that secret cannon where you find it, and when you attack the cannon, it launches like a little ball, like a cannonball, and it shoots, but it's very like kind of like meh, like it doesn't really do that much damage. And this cannon was just so much more impressive when it shot out. It was just like boom, just like this huge blast. And the wall just, completely destroyed, and I really love that, and I want to see more of that throughout the game. I want to see them experiment more with the idea of making the background interact with the level design. That's really important, and I think that's really going to advance things.
Yeah, and other people want to see more of that too. I saw mentions of people want like rats, lightning flashing in the background, maybe find a seagull behind a box or something, and just little things in the background that will add that flavor that we love so much from Iga's previous works.
Yeah, and I think all of that is going to come with time. Since this is such an early build, I kind of feel like, I don't know, I kind of am hesitant to judge the graphics that much at this point. I think level design wise, everything is looking really good. I was getting lost in the map, and that's the best thing, especially on a non-linear game, because you kind of want to find your own way and kind of build your own plan when you're playing a game like this. So that's definitely what I was doing.
Yeah, and as long as you're getting lost for the right reasons, I felt that some of the rooms were kind of a little bit copy and paste-ish.
Yeah.
They would look similar to each other, but then you'd have others that had very unique things, like stuff in the background, like little dinghy boats and stuff that wasn't in other parts. But then you'd come into, a vertical corridor where it's got the same beam as everything else, every other place like that in there.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Overall, I was really happy with it.
Yeah,
and
it'll be nice to see some more variety as they build the levels.
Yeah. People mentioned they wanted more secret areas, or at least one person did. And I thought that the amount of secret areas was just right in the demo. I found like 3 or 4, and they were not obvious. So you'd have to really be looking for them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I would add that I would really like to see is more items that you could find in the walls. That's always been really important as a Castlevania fan. So, not saying that you need to, find wall meat or anything like that, but I think it'd be cool to bust open some stuff and find some coins, or find something that you can use throughout the game. Maybe not like the crystal shards or anything like that, but something that is kind of a nod to fans, even if it is.
Well, they did that though. They did that.
Yeah.
If once you're up on that beam that breaks,
right,
and you go up to that area in the upper left, there's a chest there, and right behind that, there's a wall that you can break and get an item.
Right. I'm just saying, I want to see more of that. That's all.
Right. And then there was a crate. And when you break the crate, it gave another item. So I think they are going to include that. There was just as much of that as there were actual secret rooms.
Right. Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. That's going to be fun.
Yeah. What do you think about the chests giving the items the way they do? They just kind of don't pop up, and they tell you what you get in the lower left corner, and you'll have like 2 chests next to each other. We've seen feedback that maybe there should just be one chest that gives multiple items, and that they should pop up out of the chest.
No, I like the idea of multiple chests. I think that's, for the most part, been pretty consistent with most Castlevania games as well, most of the Igavanias. So I'm personally okay with that. I think that, I think back specifically to Symphony of the Night, when you would find a secret room, and there would be things that were built into the background that you could destroy. And I hope to see more of that as well, because it's stuff like that I think a lot of casual fans may not see, but the hardcore people are going to be like, oh, I know what's in there. And it's gonna make you think. Like, there were these, I'm trying to think, in Symphony of the Night there was a room, or at least a couple rooms, where there were these like golden spheres that were on like a table or something like that, and you would break it open and it would ooze out like this green liquid, but it would give you an item. And that's kind of what I'd like to see more of, is really hard to, because normally I would just walk by something like that if I was a casual fan, if I didn't play these games over and over again. And it'd be cool if they started hiding like really super crazy secret items in there that, or in these chests, making the chests harder to find. So I think it's okay to have multiple chests giving one item each. I don't think there's a problem with that.
Yeah, I want to see that too. I want to hit the up button and it actually do something in the background, like, because they said with the little tutorial that pops up as you play, it says press up to search.
Right.
To me, search means more than just search a chest. It just means search, period.
Right.
So I have high hopes for that. One person was talking about using a whip to swing Indiana Jones style on the ship.
Yes.
It's a pirate ship. Well, it's not a pirate ship, but it's a ship. I'd want a little bit of swashbuckling action. I think that'd be neat.
I am a huge Super Castlevania 4 fan, so anything I need to do to get some whip swinging, I'm cool with. But here's the thing, and this is important to think about. I think it'd be really cool if they made the different weapons that you get throughout the game. So, she starts off, she just has the kick, and then she gets the sword. So the sword, let's say, for example, it has a specific power-up. Like, if you remember, and I hate to keep going back to this, but the design is so fantastic on it. Symphony of the Night, there were certain weapons that you could get that did special attacks depending on the way that you press the buttons. So if you did like a Hadoken type of like down to forward motion, and then you press the attack button, it would do like a super attack. And it'd be cool if you had things like that allow you to get access to certain parts of levels. And to add on to the whip thing, it'd be cool if you found a whip and the whip allowed you to get access to certain parts that you could not get access to without the whip. So like,
I'd love that.
Use the whip to swing and grab onto a hook that's like super high up that you couldn't normally access, and you would always walk by it. And I think that would be really cool because, again, that would throw back to the days of Symphony of the Night when you're kind of like, sifting through trying to find every little nook and cranny. And so if a weapon made it so that it had like a secondary purpose, I think that would be really great.
Absolutely. And I've seen button input weapon commands ever since the Kickstarter launched. People were asking for that. I've seen that in the forum feedback just for the demo.
Yep. And
even before the demo in the game's suggestion area on the forums, people have always wanted that. And I've always loved that too. I think that those, they're not hidden, but the special attacks for those things are something that maybe a super casual player is not even going to know about because they weren't really advertised in Symphony, but you could do them, and that was just like the spells and things too.
Yeah.
And, it just adds a little bit more depth to the game. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know about it at all when I first played through Symphony, and it wasn't until later on that I think I did one on accident, and I was like, whoa, what was that? And I found out when you pause the game or when you go into the menu, I found out that there were all these different moves that you could get depending on when you do them. So it unlocks it, so it tells you how to do it. I think that they should do that here as well.
Well, what do you think about the breakable lanterns versus the regular lanterns in the ship? It looks like those lanterns, to me, kind of would belong anywhere in the game.
Yeah. So it's funny that we're talking about that because when I was playing through, Ed was watching me, and I was breaking all the like purplish lanterns. Those are the ones that had stuff. And as I'm breaking them, Ed was like, "Why don't you get the gold ones?" And he was talking about the candles, if I recall, that were like lit in the background.
Well, they're lanterns too.
Lanterns,
yeah, they're gold. Yeah.
But I'm looking at those afterwards, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I could technically, like if I wanted to." So I tried to attack them, and nothing happened. So I don't know, like there's certain parts of Symphony which I go back to where there's too many candles. I'm trying to think. It's like when you're going down through the library and you go through the area that has that monster with the giant like wrecking ball, like the prison, the chain, the ball and chain. That whole area, you just get a ton of coins, and you're attacking like those little like dragons that howl when you kill them. That whole area is to me a bit of a nuisance because it's just too much to collect all at once. And so I thought the balance was good in Symphony because you also had to attack enemies as well. So I would hate for it to be a situation where like you just have to keep breaking lanterns left and right, and you're getting the little ones, the big ones. Like, I don't know. I think the amount of item drops that you would get in the game so far in the demo were fine. I didn't have a problem with it.
Okay. Visually, though, do you think that the purple lanterns look like they didn't belong in the level? Because earlier you'd mentioned how sometimes the level didn't quite mesh well together. Was that one of the things that...
Yeah, I mean, I knew right away that that's what I needed to attack. I didn't even go to the gold lanterns. I went straight for the purple ones. And the way that I play Castlevania is very similar to the way that I play Doom, where I just attack everything until I get everything in the room. So I will just, I'll, like in Doom, for example, I'll just run along the wall and I'll just keep pressing space just to... It
See
sounds,
if there's a hidden panel or something.
It just sounds like my Marine is just humping the wall constantly. But with Symphony, it's kind of, or really any of the Igavanias or the Castlevania games, I kind of like whip at the walls that I think will give me something, or attack the walls that I think will give me something. And so I don't necessarily think that the color threw me off, so to speak. But I would say that I think there's a need for a little bit more color balance in the game. From what I've played, yeah.
Well, as far as the lantern concerned, I like them. I think that instantly I knew which ones I could and could not hit. So when I was playing, I tried to do, while I was jumping, a kind of a diagonal upward slash with the sword, and I couldn't do that. And I was pleased to see that a whole bunch of other people want more directions in their attacks. And there was one person that had an explanation about why that would be a bad thing, that various weapons need to have strengths over others, and like maybe an overhand axe is good for getting that kind of direction taken care of. So I agree with that, even though I saw plenty of other people saying they want attacks in more directions. Maybe that's the functions of having a lot of different weapons. Otherwise they're all the same.
Yeah, I mean, with the swords, I mean, if you're thinking back to Symphony, you would definitely be able to tell when you're moving and attacking at the same time. Like, there's so many different ways that you can attack with your swords and with your weapons. So with this, I don't know, I kind of feel like with a sword specifically, I wanted to be able to attack with more directions. But like if I had an overhead axe or like a really thick, like meaty, like gladius type like sword, or even like a whip, the only thing that I would really want is I would want the whip to whip in every direction, just like Super Castlevania 4. So
absolutely, yeah.
I mean,
definitely for the whip.
Oh yeah, or at least give the option to have multiple different types of whips. I don't know how in depth they can go when it comes to developing the game regarding whips. If there were multiple different types of whips, maybe, like, let's say for example there was just a straightforward, like Bloodlines style whip where you can like whip diagonally up, whip straight down, whip left, right, that sort of thing. Kind of keep it a little bit more bare bones, not so much like the original trilogy where you're basically just whipping in one direction. And then they can have another item drop maybe later on that's like the ultimate whip that you could use like in any direction. So I don't know how much they can do with that, but it also, when I think about it and when I say it out loud, it does kind of seem silly that Miriam wouldn't be able to use a whip in a specific direction just because it's a specific item. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well,
but it's a game,
right? Exactly. So I kind of feel like the whip should always move in any direction and should continue that Super Castlevania 4 legacy that was built upon it so many years, because that really was not used ever again for the most part.
Yeah, Super Castlevania 4 definitely got it right, and yeah, that was a big strength of that game. Mm-hmm. So, did you use your right stick and just kind of like play around with it to make her hand move around? Because a lot of people don't realize that you can do that right out the gate to use your spells.
Yeah, I did. I thought it was different. At first, I thought it was a little awkward, but as I was using it more, I kind of got used to it. I think the thing that really kind of threw me off was the spell that was basically like a water sploosh. It was like sploosh.
Yeah, that just goes one direction. Right?
Yeah, I was not a fan of that one personally. I didn't mind the fire. I think it'd be cool if you could power it up more, like maybe combining crystals. That'd be kind of neat. Kind of like a Gunstar Heroes kind of thing, where like if you combine this crystal with that crystal, then you'll get like a super powerful flame. But then if you combine one crystal with a completely different one, maybe, then something else would happen that would be a different attack altogether. Maybe like a homing attack or something like that. Mm-hmm. So
I'll be interested in seeing which way that they go on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of got used to it too. At first, when I used it, I was like, I'm doing like thumb judo over here to try to do this. But then when I was fighting the Amy's, the ghost like creatures that float around, I would find that they would get in spaces after I hit them that I couldn't exactly attack twice, like really quickly, and I would just point at them with the right stick and hit that button, and bam, they're dead. Like even if they were straight above me, I could still kill them pretty quickly. So I really liked that. I thought it was innovative, but it's not totally necessary if you don't want to use it.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people were saying that the combat was slow, and they meant from Miriam and the enemies as well. But as a whole, yeah, I thought that all of it seemed like not as aggressive as I would like, and not as dangerous as I'd like. So yeah, I'd like to see that ramped up a bit more. That's going to add a little bit more excitement to playing the game.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't feel like there was any danger at all pretty much while playing. I never felt like I was running low on health or anything, and there was plenty of potions too, so I was just kind of moseying on through the level. And again, for an intro level, this makes sense in terms of the difficulty, but I would like to feel like it was a little bit more difficult. I don't want them to hold back the difficulty, but at the same time, I think it should be the type of game where anybody can pick up and play, and that there's a good steady incline for the difficulty. It shouldn't start off right out the gate as super crazy difficult.
Right, I agree, but again, it was made just for E3. They already have addressed that they do want to make it more difficult with enemy placements and all that kind of stuff. They said that before they even asked for feedback. Anyways, but yeah, if the combat's a little bit more fast-paced, I think that'd be really good.
Yeah.
A lot of people wanted, when you press up, it'll do a pose.
Yep.
They just loved that about like Symphony and stuff. And I mean, who wouldn't want that? If you stop attacking, she does have like a little idle animation.
Yeah.
But I would like a search animation too.
I gotta admit, I pressed up and held up.
Oh yeah.
When I started playing, and Ed was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I want to see her animation." And I kind of look back to Portrait of Ruins specifically with those animations, because I thought that they were some of my favorites, especially when Charlotte you're pressing and holding up, and she kind of like wiggles her hips, and she's like, not bad. Like, I thought that was really cute. Like that's the kind of stuff that I think would be cool. But at the same time, I don't feel like we've seen enough of Miriam's personality yet, so maybe they're still building on that. I feel like if they did something very similar to that, like they did with Charlotte, it wouldn't work as well, in my opinion. I kind of feel like they need to show more personality of who she is before they can throw in that sort of kind of hidden movement or pose.
Yeah, because it's going to add to her character definition, I think. Yeah. So what do you think about a forward dash instead of just having a back dash?
I like the forward dash, especially I'm a pretty big fan of Harmony of Dissonance as well. I love that game. And I really like that they added in a forward dash, because I just felt like the forward dash provided so much more momentum instead of a back dash. Like, I almost never used the back dash except to be flashy and cool. But I feel like the forward dash actually, it kind of helps in a couple different ways. For one, if you're a speedrunner, it's absolutely necessary because it helps speed up the process and it helps speed up the gameplay. So speedrunners should definitely want to see a forward dash. Me, I'm not a speedrunner, but anything that helps me get through a game faster and keeps the momentum high, I'm okay with. So I feel like a forward dash would work well. But that, of course, that gets into a whole conversation about the slide, as far as, did you like the slide? Did you not like the slide? I personally liked it. I thought it worked well, and it definitely added something to the movement of Miriam.
Yeah, I like the slide too. I certainly wouldn't want to slide through an entire game, though. You get some bad chafing.
Yeah. I will say this. I thought that she didn't go further, like far enough. Like, I wanted her to slide further, and she just didn't. Or maybe roll, like tuck and roll instead of slide.
Yeah, you're definitely not alone there. That was good feedback. And some people were saying maybe the slide just gets better as they level up. That might be cool too.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. When I was playing, I played on 2 different computers. Played on my laptop, and then I played on my desktop computer, which is really just kind of a media computer. It's not made really for playing more sophisticated hardware.
It's not beefy enough.
I
have the same problem with my laptop, so yeah, you're not alone on that one.
I let my daughter play on that one, and when she equipped the sword and was attacking, she couldn't hit anything. It would just go right through the enemies.
Weird.
And I couldn't replicate that bug. But even when I was playing, I felt, especially with the flail head that you get from Dullahammer, like the hits don't register sometimes.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people talking about that on the forum. So it's I think it's just going to come with time. I don't think it's a permanent fixture of the game. Again, we've talked about this. It's an E3 demo, so
yeah. For sliding and back jumping and stuff, I think one thing that's really important that I don't think people are talking enough about is whenever you're backdashing and you hit jump, she jumps like straight up, like perfectly straight up.
Yeah.
She stops on a dime and jumps just straight vertical, and she needs to regain or retain a little bit of momentum for that. I
agree.
Yeah. So I really hope we see that. Did you find that it was hard to precisely move Miriam if you just wanted to nudge her forward just a little bit or back just a little bit?
With her walking cycle, I was more paying attention to how she moved, not so much like distance-wise. So I was kind of chugging along at a pretty normal pace. I didn't do little slight taps of the forward or backwards buttons. I was more or less just really enjoying seeing her animated walk. It's just so good. I was just smiling ear to ear, just totally in love with the fact that we're getting a new Castlevania game, and it plays and looks and feels like Castlevania, pretty much just everything but the name.
Her animations are so smooth.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's so smooth. It's fantastic.
Moving her precisely, though, we really didn't have many opportunities to need to do that, but you're going to get in those boss battles where, there's columns of fire you're going to have to fit between and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Overall, I thought she controlled really well. Some people were saying, and I kind of felt this too, that if you're kind of rotating and turning from left to right or right to left, if you attack, it doesn't quite always go in the direction you're pointing at the moment. It waits on the animation to finish, and wherever the animation's at, it goes to that side.
Right.
I didn't have a lot of problems with that, but there were a couple of times where I was like, that was kind of weird. I meant to attack the other direction. So I don't know what's up with that, but I think that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And then some people were saying that they wanted a dive kick, and I tried to do that too. I could do it with the Kung Fu boots, I think. Or maybe with the default kick.
Yeah.
But I don't think I could do it when I had a sword, and I was really used to that. So. Yeah,
I think that it would be... And I don't know. I would say that Castlevania has never been big, or, especially in the classic franchise, has never really been that big on combos or building combos. But it might be a unique idea to think about to make it so that you can build up combos and you can level up with more experience if, she dive kicks onto an enemy and then starts attacking with a sword or with her, normal kick. I would say that her kick was a bit slow. It did kind of feel like, pushing through like a giant gate of molasses, so to speak.
You're not the only one that thought that too.
Yeah, I kind of wanted her kick to be sped up a little bit. But at the same time,
I agree.
I don't know, I never pictured her a big, martial artist kick style type of thing. So, I always thought, maybe her animation or maybe her attack should be, fists, then kick? I don't know. I mean, she does... It looks like she has pretty powerful legs, though, too. So maybe the emphasis is to place more damage and more power in her legs than her arms. Maybe her arms are more just for weapons, so to speak. So I'm not really sure where they're going with that.
She's got the Shikon jewel shard in her legs. That's what makes her powerful.
Exactly.
But, a lot of people were talking about how, if you get behind an object, it'll kind of color her. You'll see a silhouette, but she'll clip through the sides of the levels especially if you're like backdashing and stuff. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that people were talking about. It didn't really break the game for me. Everything worked just fine.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't access places you weren't supposed to because of it or anything, but I think visually maybe just hide her instead of showing the silhouette or something. I don't know. But the clipping is probably going to have to be addressed, though.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you could see through the sprite kind of, I don't know, it kind of bothered me a little bit. I almost wanted to be like, well, why is it there? And I think back to the olden days of gaming where you would have objects that were meant to be in front of something but not necessarily like blocking everything. But it was okay if something was blocked. Like if your feet were blocked because you walked in front of something that was in the foreground, it wasn't that big of a deal, so to speak. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that. It does feel very retro, but at the same time, it feels more modern in a lot of ways. So I don't know. I'm still a little bit torn on what I would prefer them to do, because I feel like modern-wise, if you're going with a more modern style to the game,
yeah,
especially with a 2D game, I think that's how it would be handled, and I think there'd be a greater focus on more definition and more things in the foreground and background that you can just kind of pass through. And I've seen a lot more modern games do that than retro games, so I feel like they're going for maybe like a modern twist on a retro style.
Yeah, because, I mean, if they wanted to get super technical about it, it's all in 3D. They could do some collision and animation and stuff for all of that, but I think that would get on my nerves if I bump a wall and it like pushes me back a little or something. That'd drive me crazy.
True.
Anyways, another thing, I know it's just an E3 demo, but people were really wanting some custom button configurations and remappings. So, full recovery on level up. I saw several people mention that. That kind of changes how much health is given to finish a level, but the health was definitely more restricted than the mana regeneration. So I think that might be a game design decision. But several people were interested in doing hey, I leveled up, so give me all my health back.
Right. I mean, I didn't spend enough time like memorizing all the rooms yet. But was there any save points, so to speak? That's what I thought.
No, you couldn't save.
Right, and that's what I figured, because it is a demo after all, and it's still a very early build. But what I was going to say is that if there were save spots, and let's pretend that this game launched and we're talking about the intro level, basically. If there were more areas that had, like, rooms that had save spots in them, I don't necessarily think it'd be a problem. I think that would also ramp up the difficulty quite a bit, as if you didn't recover full HP on leveling up. So maybe that's the way to go if they want to increase the difficulty. Maybe. And the one thing I will say about items, especially in Castlevania, the later games of the Igavanias, is I never really would use the items that much for health regeneration. I would really try to get to a save point to refill my health, or like we said before, full recovery upon leveling up. So if I leveled up, which I'm trying to remember. I don't think you would get full recovery. I think you would just get a little bit more life if you get leveled up. I think that's
like whatever your constitution increase gives you.
Right,
something like that.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
I know for speedrunners at least, and people that don't like their, quote, hands held, they wanted the tutorial things to kind of just be an option to turn off. And I don't know, like, maybe if it didn't pause the screen when it told you, like, can a message just come up and just kind of hover for a minute? I don't know why it has to pause the game to do it.
I've always been a fan of the less tutorial, the better, because growing up, I relied on my own wit to figure out the game, but in this day and age, if you want to make a game marketable, and if this game is, it's getting a full release, it's going to be released physically and digitally. So I kind of feel like in this day and age, you have to. Like, there's no way around there's no way around it. You either make the game completely retro or make the game completely modern. Sometimes there can be a little bit of both, but to give you a really good example, Zelda, a franchise, not unlike some of the Igavanias. In fact, Iga himself has said that Zelda was a big influence, not
Metroid.
Not Metroid, which ever since then, I was just like, I kind of don't like the term Metroidvania, because he the man himself has said it's not Metroid that was the main influence. A lot of people argue that, and they're like, well, you can't not look at Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night and compare the two and say that they're not the same. They're not, but
that's correlation, not
right,
not causation.
Exactly. So what I would say is that with the Zelda franchise, the game started off with very little tutorial, and any tutorial that I did go through was very simple. It was very easy, and if I couldn't figure something out on my own, I would just look at the manual, and the manual would help me through it. But I'm a big fan of trial and error, so if I screw something up, as long as the game gives me the opportunity to try again, I'm okay with that. But in this day and age, I think, definitely gamers are more used to having games be more playable, so to speak, and having their hands held a little bit more. So I think because this game is built for an audience that's not necessarily completely 100% modern, I think that they would be doing more justice with making the game with as little tutorial as possible as far as that goes. But I don't think they could get away with completely doing away with the tutorials or making them optional. If they want to make them optional, I think that'd be really cool, actually. And I would be one of the people that would probably turn off the tutorials and just figure it out for myself.
Yeah.
But
just a couple.
But I did just want to say that I never personally had a problem with this tutorial. I thought it was fine. I didn't really have any issues with it.
Yeah, me neither.
It wasn't obnoxious.
All right, so graphics-wise, a lot of people were making comments about the equipment needs to change the picture of the character in the menu, but that's just a 2D image. I don't think that they had really the time to do that.
No.
But people really wanted to see it. Actually, one person was opposed to seeing it, but I think the consensus kind of is they want to see Miriam change in the menu.
I think that'd be kind of neat. I mean, I also think it would take a lot more power to do that on the fly, but I don't know, who knows.
They would have to model all of those things that we're seeing so small in gameplay.
Yeah.
They'd have to make it to where it'd look good zoomed up too, so I don't know how that would work out. Let's see, people were saying that the characters kind of look disjointed from the background. I heard that several times.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And that's, the enemies and Miriam herself, they look like they're just kind of in two different worlds.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
Two different styles. People wanted to see more things like rain interacting with the background or on the ground. Just like I thought they had some great effects in there, like the wind's blowing the rain around and stuff. But they want to see like that next level, and it just like raining on things and splattering on the ground.
Yeah, I thought it looked fantastic for the rain. I thought the rain looked phenomenal, but I will say that it would be cool to see droplets kind of hit the ground. I don't know how much power that would take as far as development goes, because I'm not really that familiar with how much power that would take, but I think that'd
be worth it.
Yeah, it would, totally.
In Iga's previous games, like you could run on a truck and snow would dip off and stuff like that. I love to see the background be affected by the weight of the character, and I think those rope platforms are a great way to use that as an example, to like where her weight is affecting that, or maybe when she's on those broken masts to make her weight shifted or something.
Totally agree.
There were some of those rope platforms that were hard for me to see, like the one to get up to the boss. I passed by that, and I actually saw a couple of playthroughs from a few friends, and they passed it up too. So I don't think that those rope platforms are as obvious as they should be. But when I did find it, I was like, oh, I missed that, and I felt like that was part of the exploration of it. So I'm kind of torn if that's a bad thing or not.
Right,
but
right.
Most platforms are obviously supposed to be easy to see, but if they're not, and it adds to the exploration, I don't know. There's a give and take there. anyways, we had plenty of other great suggestions for graphics and stuff, and then a lot of people wanted to see sound level options where they can adjust the sound effects versus the music. And things like
that was a huge problem for me. The sound, and I recognize the fact that this was built for E3,
right.
So there was a greater focus on sound effects. It's very similar to the arcade atmosphere, where arcades, for the most part, most arcade games took sound and sound effects over music, but that music has got to be louder. That was a huge problem for me. The music, in my opinion, should always be louder than the sound effects.
Yeah, absolutely, especially because we're huge Yamane fans,
yes.
So we've got to hear that music.
Absolutely.
And people wanted to hear more noises from the monsters and more noises from Miriam. Like, she has no voice at this point, and that's probably mostly because it's early build. And one thing that was kind of distracting sound effect-wise, though, was when she lands. Like, if I'm doing a lot of quick jumps and slashes, that tap of her feet gets kind of, I don't know, just a little too loud. So maybe if that was softer, that'd be good. But those were the biggest things I heard from the feedback. Overall, was there anything else demo-wise that you wanted to mention?
I think we pretty much touched on all of it. I will say that I thought that the demo was very impressive overall, and I would probably, if I was to say anything, I would probably want to see more about Miriam in the intro, and even if it was just like she just kind of appeared in the game, and I would like to see maybe she's running away from something. I would like to see more of her in trouble or in turmoil and see a little bit more action and how she gets out of it, because I think that's important. That's kind of something that we've never really seen in a Castlevania game. Some of them we have, but for the most part, I think that there's definitely a lack of turmoil and peril. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Lords of Shadow actually...
Oh my god.
I'm trying really hard not to say anything bad about it, but Lords of Shadow actually did get that right. I did feel a lot more peril and a lot more like, that things were chasing after me at certain points.
You traitor. No, I'm just
kidding.
Right.
No.
Well, I think maybe it was the Reddit AMA. Someone asked Iga something similar to what the intro screen or what his perfect intro screen or something would be like. And he's like, just get right to the action. It'd be short. Just get into the gameplay.
Yeah.
I think that his mentality is to get, straight. Even in Symphony, you're fighting the boss from the last game. You start off fighting Dracula. That's awesome. Or you'll start out on, like a horse and carriage ride. Not carriage. I guess it's a carriage. I don't know. Anyways, like you're in a chase scene in the very first thing.
Yeah.
I think he's a big fan of getting straight to the action. So
yeah.
I don't know if we'll see that from him, but I do think that connecting with the character, I haven't felt really connected to a character since Alucard, and he didn't really have all that much to start out with, but it developed throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think we'll see more of that, and very similar to Alucard, Simon Belmont. I mean, all the characters, even leading up to Shinoa. I mean, we didn't really see a ton of personality, except for I would say the more popular games, like I think maybe Aria of Sorrow, Dawn of Sorrow, and even Portrait of Ruin. I think you got to see a little bit more about who these characters are and what they're like as people. Whereas Shinoa felt very stiff, very cold, and very brooding. And so I'm kind of getting that sense from Miriam so far.
Yeah, and I don't want that. I want her to have a lot more personality.
I agree. I think that I want her to be a little bit more lighthearted. Not like, anything from like a Poppin' Twinbee game or anything like that. But I would definitely like to see a little bit more emotion. Be it good, bad, just... I really hope that they don't just make her very flat feeling, because that wouldn't fit.
No pressure, future voice actress.
I'm sure she'll do fine.
Yeah. What would be cool, though, is, hey, in all the old games, if you don't press start, you get to see like a little movie or something. So that's a great opportunity and a space to do something like that in.
Definitely.
So, did you hear the unreleased track that someone ripped out of the demo?
I did. It was awesome. It was really good.
Music is one of the biggest selling points for me on this game, because the music in the series is like probably 50% of why I love it so much.
Absolutely.
And that's probably like 90% of how I got hooked on your podcast was the shared love of the Castlevania music. So
right.
I was super happy that someone found that track.
It was great. I mean, one thing I really loved out of it, which I took from it, was the harpsichord. You know, the Baroque era of classical music, and that mesh of different types of modern music: pop, J-pop, J-rock, metal, dance, electronic, whatever it is. It always fits really well, and I think that, you know, Yamane's work here is fantastic so far. I'm really looking forward. I was smiling ear to ear listening to it, just like, oh my god, this is so good.
Yeah, I like the violin in it too. It's kind of the main. It seems to be the branching instrument over all of Bloodstained from what I've heard so far. I really want to hear some more of those Ippo Yamada tracks, man, because that one he cranked out was amazing.
Yes. Yeah, he's done a lot of work for Intercreates before, so I've always been, for the most part, pretty happy with all of his work. So I think he's a good fit for a co-composer. And, you know, again, I'm interested in seeing what Jake Kaufman has to bring, because I'm a huge fan of his.
Yeah, what's some of the good stuff that you like from Jake?
Well, I really like from Double Dragon Neon, Mango Tango. That's a fantastic track. Dalmatian Station, which is an amazing track from Mighty Switch Force 2. Shovel Knight. Oh man, what's the name of the track? The High Far Above Lands or something. I can't remember the name of the track off the top of my head, but it's the one where you're fighting the propeller guy.
What about the Pirate's Curse game?
Shantae and the Pirate's Curse.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, I love the Shantae games. I mean, I've been a big fan of the Shantae games since the first one, and I picked it up for, believe it or not, $3 loose at GameStop.
Oh, nice.
And I still have it. And so I've been a big fan of the franchise for quite some time now, and I feel like it's the last great classic franchise that still exists, in terms of like trying to appeal to the hardcore gamer but also feel fresh and casual. So I think Shantae is definitely one of the best things going on in gaming right now. It feels retro and modern at the same time, and you know, so I'm really looking forward to Half Genie Hero.
Yeah, me too. So when did you start listening to game music outside of games?
Oh man, well, you know, I used to listen to a lot of... I would just put games on and sometimes just go into the sound menus, like the options, and I would listen to music that way. But I would say probably Donkey Kong Country was the first game that I ever owned a soundtrack to. And so I got it from Nintendo Power, and I would just listen to the soundtrack over and over and over again. So it wasn't actually a Castlevania was my first soundtrack. It was Donkey Kong Country. But the first CD I ever bought with my own money, I think was Dracula X, the soundtrack to Dracula X, or Symphony of the Night. But it was, when they mailed it to me, it was Dracula X, because that was the Saturn version. So that was the name of it.
I could play the PlayStation disc straight in my CD player from Symphony.
Yeah, this was after I'm trying to think. I had already played through Symphony quite a bit, and I didn't realize that I could put the CD in and just listen to the music on the PlayStation or listen to the music in a CD player. So
right, because who does that?
Oh,
right?
yeah,
who's like, I'm
right?
gonna put this game in this. Yeah.
So I just imported the soundtrack from one of those like ads in EGM, like the EGM magazine, and we're gonna actually talk about this on the podcast tomorrow when we record it. But because somebody mentioned it, excuse me, somebody mentioned it in a question about something in particular. So if you do listen to the podcast, you'll hear it. It's going to be episode 65. But it's funny because I was really embarrassed to listen to video game music in public, even though I had headphones in. So I'd walk around my high school, the halls, with a CD player, like a full-on ginormous CD player, because I grew up in the late 90s. I was in high school, late 90s into early 2000s. I graduated high school in 2001. So, I remember it was probably like about 1999, and I was, just chilling, hanging out in high school, walking around with this CD player, listening to the Symphony of the Night soundtrack. And people would ask me, oh, what do you listen to? And I would just be like, oh, just like Metallica. I did like Metallica, but I just was weirdly embarrassed about it. And I remember dropping the CD player at one point, and I actually snapped the CD in half.
No.
Yeah, and I was super bummed. But I picked it up. I kind of like scooped the whole thing up. I broke
like a dirty little secret.
Yeah, like nobody could see what's in the CD player. So I don't know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So out of all of your collection, I know you've got a really, really awesome Castlevania collection. What is your crown jewel of your collection?
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, I have most of the games complete in box. There's still, there's some stuff like Kid Dracula, which I'm fully convinced doesn't exist complete in box. I'm sure that some fans will prove me wrong, but I've never personally seen it. I've never seen it on eBay. I just have never seen it personal. So, probably the item that I think was the biggest win for me, at least on a personal level, was when I won an eBay auction, going back and forth with a major eBay battle for the Akumajou Dracula X68000 game. So I have the original, complete in box, even down to the registration cards, the slip covers that have the Konami logo on them, everything. So that's probably my most, at least on a personal level, that's my best item in my Castlevania collection. As far as
what about your collection as a whole?
As a whole, ooh, that's tough.
Let me guess, it's your Samus statue, isn't it?
My Samus statue is pretty cool. I mean, I've got a lot of really cool statues and stuff. I just got a Morgan statue not too long ago, and I really like that.
I'm glad that repaired well.
Yeah, no, it worked out in the end. So
every time I see something Metroid now, I think the baby. Baby. Because your video.
Yeah.
Great.
I actually just picked up a Samus figure not too long ago. It's the Figma Samus figure from Other M, and it's really cool. So yeah, I have a pretty big Metroid collection as well, but it's not. There's less merchandise for Castlevania, I would say, which is unfortunate. And also because there's so many rabid fans out there, I think the Castlevania collection stuff, especially on a merchandise level, is insanely expensive. So another crown jewel that I have is I have almost all of the Nika action figures for the Castlevania action figures.
Oh yeah.
And I have the Samus translucent figure as well, complete in box, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So I wish that I could get more of the merchandise. I also have a poster from an issue of EGM. It's a little tiny poster. It's kind of small. But it's this weird, almost Puerto Rican looking guy. He's I don't know. He doesn't look like Reinhard Schneider, but it's supposed to be him, I guess, in this ad. And it's a really cool poster. It's this little poster that was a fold-in poster that came with this issue of EGM. And a friend of mine gave it to me a long time ago, and I still have it. And I have it hung up on my wall, so...
Huh.
Yeah.
That's the thing I miss most about all the Nintendo Power was all the posters I used to get from that. They were all over my walls, and now I don't have anything from Nintendo Power.
I know. The one other item that I have in my collection that I think is probably one of my favorite, especially Castlevania, is I have I met Kinyo Yamashita at MagFest a couple years back.
Sweet.
And I didn't have anything for her to sign at the time. So before I got in line to meet her, I ran all over the place trying to find Castlevania 1, and they were completely sold out everywhere at MagFest on the floor. But I did find the Famicom Disk System version of the game. So
cool.
Yeah, so I bought that. I paid 30-something bucks for it, but it was totally worth it. And she signed it, and I have that in my collection as well. So I'm pretty happy about that.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
So, as a collector, do you think that a staggered content release for Bloodstained would kind of be a detriment to the physical stuff? Like, how do you think that would affect a physical collector?
Yeah, I'm a little worried about that, especially with all the stuff that's been going on with Mighty Number 9 and with Shantae. There's a lot of questions, and we're not getting a lot of answers. But the big difference with Bloodstained is right out of the gate, we knew that there would be a physical copy of the game. So I'm not that worried about the downloadable content. I just want the whole game in and of itself, and all the stretch goals and all the extra stuff that was kind of added in that may be considered possibly for DLC afterwards, maybe, that we're all going to get. I just want to make sure that, when we get the physical version, that we'll be able to download that stuff. And regarding Shantae, nobody's been able to tell me that. I mean, I've reached out on the community, on the comments and everything, and nobody's been able to confirm or deny whether or not, if I went out and bought a physical copy the day it releases, would I still also be able to download the files? Because there's some games that you can't do that on, and there's some games that you can.
Huh.
Yeah, so I'm a little worried that the game's digital version for Bloodstained may be reacting differently than the physical version of Bloodstained.
Well, I hope that whatever direction they take on that ends up being great for collectors. I think that as long as it's just the multiplayer online type stuff that's not included, it won't be a big deal at all. But for game modes like Boss Rush and things like that, we're used to having those in our games. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, that's about all I had. Did you want to plug anything or talk about anything else?
Well, I mean, like I said before, as far as the YouTube channel goes, if you go to youtube.com/Dongled, or if you just type in YouTube, dude, you haven't played this game, or if you type in PixelTunes Radio, you could find it there. You could
Miketendo.
Yeah, or
Miketendo. Just
Miketendo.
type in Miketendo,
Yeah.
it'll find you.
That's true. You could also find PixelTunes Radio at pixeltunesradio.com. If you want to check out the Facebook page, it's facebook.com/groups/PixelTunes Radio.
And I highly recommend people do that because it's a great group. I love it.
Yeah, no, the Facebook group's a lot of fun. We have a good time running it, so I think it's pretty cool. So, we do talk about a lot about Castlevania, and we also, do sometimes mention Bloodstained when we can. So we try to give as much props and shout-outs to the projects that we love and care about. And so that's why originally when Bloodstained when we weren't sure if it was getting a physical release on the Wii U, I made a video and I was like, hey, listen, people, go donate to this thing because
Right.
we want to see it. And it happened, and it was just great. So I was really happy about that.
Yeah, it was a good video, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad that YouTubers were out there making videos to support the game. I hope it made
Absolutely.
a difference and brought some people to the project.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that I would have known about Bloodstained if it wasn't for the PixelTunes Radio group, because some of the people in there were like, hey, Iga's playing a devs play with Symphony of the Night on Double Fine. Check it out.
Oh, I remember that,
And,
yeah.
that was like my lead in. I was like getting ramped up, and then the next day it was announced, and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah.
And
it was great.
now you're like head of the forum, so it's awesome.
Nah, I'm just a fan. I just made the forums, but I mean, the forum's nothing without the people there,
That's
so,
true.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining me, man. I'm a huge fan, and I'll look forward to listening to the next episode. Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, and I'm really glad to be a part of the Bloodstained community because it's going to be a great game. As the second I saw it, I knew. I was just like, this is going to be fantastic, and it's going to bring back to life the Castlevania fan base. So, we'll have a new love. It won't be the same, but it'll evolve into something that I think we'll all be able to appreciate.
All right, man. Well, thanks, Miketendo. See you later.
Take care.
Well, fellow fans, that wraps up the show. We talked about a lot of great feedback, but there's plenty more on bloodstainedfanforums.com, so join the conversation. There's a great modding thread where member Fatigue Yordal has modified the game files so that they play as the pure Miriam costume, to where they can use a rapier, and has changed the colors of Vipar. They also helped me use some of the game assets to start working on a new forum theme, which you can use as I work on it. It's called Demo Menu, And you can change your forum theme by going into your profile, hit the Edit Profile button on the right, go to Settings tab, and use the forum theme drop-down menu there. Thanks for listening to the show, and I hope to see you in the forums.